Hello, my friends, and welcome for another episode to another episode of Sound Off with System One. I am your host, Karen Callahan, here with Katie Goar, president of Quadel, a leader in training solutions for the affordable housing industry. And let me tell you, her and her team are most definitely making a difference in people's lives across the country. So thank you so much for joining us in today's broadcast, Katie.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, before we get started, I'll let you know a little bit about System One. System One is a leading provider of specialized, highly technical outsourced services and workforce solutions to critical infrastructure, technology, life sciences, and government sectors, putting more than 650 employees and 9,000 contractors and consultants to work in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom daily. Please, while you are joining our broadcast, go ahead and drop us a note in the comments section. Let us know where you're joining us from and what industry you are in. We have Ali Moen moderating the comments and dropping everyone's contact information as well. So please feel free to connect with Katie and me. We love growing our followers. Remember, also, this is an interactive broadcast. So if you have any questions or shout outs for Katie, please feel free to drop those in the comments as well. So without further ado, passion, personal touch, and making an impact. That is how I describe my next guest. So Katie, can you please let us know a little bit about yourself, how you got into the industry, and when you started with Quadel?
Sure. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm the president of Quadel Consulting and Training, and I have been working in affordable housing for probably over 25 years. I first got into this industry in sort of a different way, but a little bit about myself. I love what I do. I love who I work with, and I love why we're doing it. So we'll get into that as we chat a little bit more. But how I got into this, it's sort of a little different in the fact that I was working full time at a law firm and I was going to graduate school full time. And I was just so eager to find something or a job that was in my field. I took whatever job I could. And it was an entry level position with the city of Indianapolis at their Metropolitan Development Department. And I was a financial analyst working for HUD Grants. I had zero experience, but I was so eager because I thought it was going to be in my field. And it was a really exciting time because there was a lot of funding for home ownership and redevelopment and affordable housing. And that's where I really got my feet wet, so to speak. Then I was working there for several years and eventually started working in their public housing division. And 25 years later, I'm still working in affordable housing.
It's crazy how everyone all of us just kind of fall into, it's like we have a certain idea of what we're going to do with our lives and what we're going to be when we grow up. And it's the universe calls us to something a little different, just, a little this way. But Katie's, Quadel's information is up here in the QR code to the upper left-hand side of your screen. So if you would like to scan that, you can get more information on Quadel as we further speak in this broadcast. So, Katie, please tell us a little bit about the services that Quadel is providing to the affordable housing industry.
Sure. I like to describe what Quadel does in a couple different ways because when you're not in the affordable housing and I go through the description, people are like, what is it you do again? So I explain it in two different ways. One, the technical way, and then one in the non-affordable housing speak way. So first, Quadel provides compliance and training and management solutions like contracted out administration for almost all of the HUD, that's Department of Housing and Urban Development, their affordable housing delivery platforms. So that's everything from tax credit to Section 8 vouchers to multifamily programs to public housing. And that's a lot of verbiage and acronyms right there. But in general terms, It's HUD providing rent subsidies to income eligible seniors, veterans, families, also youth leaving foster care, and people with disabilities. So it's a lot of needed affordable housing rental subsidies or assets that people could be living in that are owned or managed by either private or public entities. And Quadel works with these providers of housing to make sure the housing that they're providing is delivered in a very compliant way according to HUD standards. And Quadel, we've got offices in Memphis, Phoenix, Indianapolis, Baltimore, Raleigh, and Washington, D.C. We've got about 165 people full time, with nearly 80% of our company being minority or women. And we work with, entities all across the United States, even though our offices are in the cities I mentioned, but we're working with people from Oregon to North Carolina, up to Michigan, down to Florida.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So it's not just your locations, you service the US completely.
Correct.
Yes, from coast to
Correct.
coast.
Yep.
And it sounds like you have a really amazing team of people because it takes like a lot of drive and passion to commit to this industry. Did you want to talk about your team a little bit?
Sure. Like I mentioned, we're about 165 people strong and very diverse company, nearly 80% of our company being minority and women. And our people are amazing. And I know lots of companies say that, but we're a nice blend of the type A, type B personality because we have a lot of people who are doing compliance work. And so you have to be very driven by rules and process and workflow and systems and innovation and very tech savvy. But yet we also are doing it to impact people's lives. And so you have to have that human component and understand when we're trying to help somebody find a unit or we're trying to inspect a unit, we're trying to realize they need that affordable housing and we don't want to be an obstacle and delay in their potential move in. So it's a really unique blend of people that I have. And we have a lot of people who have been with Quadel over 20 years.
It's amazing. You do have a very tight knit group, and they're, again, full of passion and love for what they do. So it's just a kind of a very warm feeling to know that you have such a congruent team and a collaborative team. So my next question is, what was the driving force behind joining forces with System One? So, like, when did Quadel join System One, and what did that all look like?
That good question. And technically, Quadel is a subsidiary of Gap
Mhm.
Solutions, and Gap Solutions is a System One company. So we've been a part of that structure for about 2 years. And I like to think of it as a strategic alliance in the fact that both of those platforms, Gap Solutions, System One, really provide government services in a lot of different ways, but they're providing outsourced contract services in
Mhm.
several federal landscapes, such as DoD, health, transportation, energy. And what was really unique was that there was no provision there for affordable housing. So the piece related to HUD was missing, and Quadel was a natural fit.
That's exactly that was a perfect answer to that. But System One is definitely, you have definitely provided extra value and services within the System One family. So we are very happy that all of this happened and that there was a unification of sorts. So my next question is, what are the most significant challenges that renters and home buyers face in the affordable housing industry today?
Well, first and foremost, it's finding places and affording them. That
Mhm.
is really the biggest challenge right now. And right now, affordable housing and really the market in general is on everyone's mind, not
Mhm.
just affordable housing practitioners like Quadel and everybody in our company. It used to be we had this niche of people who were really advocating and talking about the need for affordable housing. But what has happened over the last 3 years, housing insecurity has just rippled through communities. And it has become an issue that is so much more, it's a closer reality for so many right now, that
Mhm.
housing instability. And as a result of that, we have seen prices go up, rent has skyrocketed, and building prices are up. So, for context, all of this is happening in an industry that was already lacking an adequate supply of affordable housing. And clearly, the production of new affordable housing is remaining to be a struggle. So, not to sound overly negative, but we are in a very dangerous intersection right now. And that is what's on everybody's mind currently. To add a little bit of positive, there are new vouchers that are coming out. Rent subsidies have been become available, and HUD is really trying to respond and bridge those gaps, but it's going to take a lot.
Yeah, I've noticed that the federal government and a few states have been initiating a lot of legislature that to support um, the industry, but it's few. I was like researching it before this. It's few and far between, they're out there, right? They're out
Mhm.
there. How are you playing a role in supporting those in need of the housing, of affordable housing specifically?
We do this in a couple of different ways. Specifically, for example, just last year, we helped agencies lease over 1,000 new vouchers. And that is people who were paired with a voucher and found a unit. We have a lot more, several thousand more, who are actually with a voucher, but looking for a unit. And
Mhm.
that's what I mentioned a few minutes ago about trying to find affordable housing and whether it's accessible or not. So, but those 1,000 people who were successful in finding, those are real families who now have housing stability at affordability. They're not paying 50 or 60% of their income for their rent. They're paying an appropriate percentage according to their income.
Mhm.
Another thing that we're doing is we've inspected over 15,000 units, checking actual housing quality standards to make sure they're decent, safe, sanitary. We are also providing professional training and certifications to bring on as many new people into the industry that we can. We do trainings across the nation to thousands of people every year. And we've even trained HUD as well. And we provide contract administration to over 87,000 units across the nation. So that's a lot of affordable housing that we're checking compliance standards on.
That must feel so gratifying to know that you're making such positive changes in people's lives.
It is. And we see that the need is so great, though. And the ability to meet that need. So we see that disparity a lot. But if we focus on exactly what we are achieving, it does help.
Exactly. So, on that note, what are some of the most innovative approaches you've seen to creating affordable housing, particularly in urban areas where land and construction costs can be so high?
That is a very difficult question. And it's really something that has been on a lot of urban planners, a lot of urban developers, a lot of affordable housing advocates. It's been on their mind for quite a while. It's at basically a crucial, I don't want to say panic, but it's like at a crucial dire straits discussion now. But new discussions are happening to see whether there needs to be modifications in zoning regulations. Maybe the regulations didn't prevent construction of alternative building parameters like multifamily apartments or even accessory dwelling units or commercial conversions. So we're seeing a lot of conversations surrounding zoning to be able to change and adapt to what the needs are in some of those areas. We're also starting to see states get a lot more focused on how they can put money in for construction. And again, we're seeing a lot of landlord incentives to try to keep people within existing housing programs.
Excellent. Um, and that was you answered that. You said it was a difficult question. You answered it perfectly. So post pandemic, I wanted to delve into this a little bit. Post pandemic, what changes are you seeing in the market, and what changes are you expecting to occur over the next few years?
Well, let's see if I can get out my crystal ball. Um, I would probably predict this current trend that we're seeing with the difficulty of finding and preserving affordable housing. I would probably predict this trend to continue, unfortunately. And the price of building more affordable units, the price increases to continue unless something radically changes right now. We can't build our way out of this dynamic, right? We can't build it fast enough,
Mhm.
and the market isn't making it easier to find rentals. But with that being said, there are several people who are offering up multiple solutions. I mentioned faster leasing. I mentioned landlord incentives. There's also conversations with many national industry groups who are talking about expanding the tax credit provision. I mentioned flexible zoning. It really is going to take a combination of things. There isn't going to be just one quick fix, but all of those conversations are happening and they're pushing towards solution making. So that's a great upside to the downside of a prediction.
Mhm. Well, in that on that note, how can technology be leveraged to improve how am I wording this? How can technology be leveraged to improve affordability and accessibility to housing? And what role can and if it can, what role can smart home technology play in the process?
So, we're in a day right now where people are, getting mortgages on their phone. They're getting Ubers on their phone. Not to sound too old, but back in the day when I was in college, there was no Google. So we have fastly, we've incorporated this technology and this smart technology in so many different aspects of our lives, but affordable housing hasn't necessarily been on the forefront of that.
Mhm.
However, we have seen and we have worked with several clients and housing authorities specifically to start assess their workflows so they can move faster, especially when it comes to approvals and processing Section 8 leases, for example, because this market, units may only be available for 1 to 3 days. Well, the Section 8 process is not built to be able to move through everything in 1 to 3 days. So, in order to meet what the market is happening and try to get people into units faster, we've started working with a lot of clients who have reassessed their streamlining processes. They are starting to use portals. They're accepting online submissions, everything, virtual interviews, video briefings, e-signatures, whatever all of those dynamics are. We're getting a lot more people who are embracing that now and realizing that we need to provide this process in the fastest, most compliant way we can. So you see a lot of leveraging in that domain happening.
Well, and speaking of technology, you have your own podcast, as if you didn't know, Ms. Gore. What inspired you to start your podcast? How often do you do them? And whatever. What's your most favorite? Just answer them all. What's your favorite interview? How can someone access your podcast, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, let's see here. Let me take your first question. What inspired me to start the podcast? Well, I work with so many people who are doing amazing things in the industry, and I just wanted other people to hear. And so I really wanted to highlight what some of our clients are doing. And as I started working through this, I just thought, this is the ultimate best practice is to be able to share that. So somebody who's in a rural community who didn't make the annual conference, they can go and listen to the podcast and say, aha, I've had a whole bunch of people telling me, no, I can't make this happen. But I just heard somebody several states away who made it happen.
Mhm.
And now I know who to connect with. I know how it can happen. I know what regulation to point them to. And so I just saw this need to be able to start bridging the gap. And I was so inspired by who I was working with in our own client fields. So that was really what started it. And I've now been doing this for 3 years. I
Mhm.
had never done a podcast before I started. So I went like warp speed ahead to where we are now. And we have over 250,000 downloads and impressions. And it has been a great partnership with Forbes Books Audio,
Mhm.
who really before Quadel had not partnered with a social service oriented business
That's amazing.
before. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's been very groundbreaking for several reasons, and not just the Forbes involvement, but our guests and our clients are industry icons. And like I mentioned, they're doing innovative things. I don't know that I could say I have a favorite, but we've got everybody from CEOs of housing authorities to nonprofits to developers to faith-based entities. It's just really all over the place on who the guests are.
Mhm.
And I think you asked me, I think I covered your question, but I'll add in
Mhm.
that all of the podcasts stream on all of the podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Alexa, and a new episode comes out every Tuesday.
Mhm.
So, one other thing to answer your question was a favorite guest, which I probably
Mhm.
shouldn't say. But what I can say is that with every single person I talk with, I come away not just learning something more, but I realize that everybody who's doing this, yes, we're doing the compliance checklist. Yes, we're doing all of the different programs, but everybody has a certain aspect of why we're doing these jobs. And we all realize how rewarding it is to be impacting people's lives who are in safe places, who have received housing subsidy and can now focus on not just surviving in their life, but maybe they can transition now to thriving. They can work on personal goals. They can stabilize their family. And every person that I interview on these podcasts has such a unique grasp on why we're doing this. So that's probably one of my favorite parts of doing these podcasts is hearing all of that.
I did. I've been listening to a few of your podcasts, and you are correct. Like, it seems that each person you interview has like their unique niche. They each have a passion and for what they do. They have personal reasons why they got into the industry, and all of them. The common thread seems to be that they're all making an impact in the industry,
Mhm.
and I can imagine it must be difficult because, like we've said earlier, it seems like the people that go into this industry, it's not about making money for them. It's literally the want to make a difference and help people gain housing independence. So it really must be so much worth it on a more ethereal level.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I enjoyed listening to some of your recent podcasts. So
And we've had people like Jillian Copeland, who was a mom of a person with like an intellectual disability, who realized as her son was getting older, there was not an independent living place. And even if there was, how could he afford it? And so you hear of her experience of how she leveraged lots of different people to come in and build a place for him. And you interview her and you hear the story of one mom who did something amazing. And you're like, wow, okay, so I hope there's a whole bunch of other moms who hear how this can be done. So you've got a podcast guest who talks about that. You've got another guest who talks about housing homeless veterans. I mean, they're just beautiful people who are doing amazing things in this industry. And so I think the more we can hear, the more we can learn, the more we can find solutions to kind of chip away at those market dynamics that I was talking about earlier.
And that, now you hit the nail on the head. So Katie is doing a wonderful job. Quadel is doing a great job servicing our people. If you have not servicing people in the industry, if you have not heard one of Katie's podcasts, I highly recommend them. You actually can, again, scan the QR code upper left-hand corner of your screen and access them there as well if you go onto her website. So Katie, thank you so much for joining us this week on our broadcast.
You're welcome. It's great to
Time
be
flew
here.
by. I know it flew by so quick. This was a great conversation. So thanks. That, my friends, wraps up today's broadcast. So thank you for joining us this week. Katie and my contact information again is in the comment section. Please connect with us. And if you have more questions for Katie, go ahead and drop those in the comment section. We will be monitoring this even after the broadcast is no longer live. In the meantime, as a reminder, please follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. All of our episodes of Sound Off with System One can be found there, along with videos that contain expert career and job search tips, hiring manager best practices, leadership insights like the one I'm doing now with Katie, and more. So please join us next week. My co-host Ali Moen will be discussing with her expert panel a hot topic for job seekers. She's going to be discussing how social media can help or hinder your job search. Again, that is 2 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn and YouTube. Have a great Thursday, everybody.